Bag, I want the bag. Work my way from a garden to a track. Flip it from a track to a plot full of acres. Do it for the farmers and the producers and the makers. What we even here for? Occasionally I ask it. I know it's more than struggling, anticipating the casket. Reap what we sow, I'm trying to fill up my basket. Life's a plantation, I self-law and master. Over the plot I've been granted on this planet. Now it's slanted, cause the chosen been supplanted. But if you overstand it, it was spoken. Fractured, but we ain't broken. Even though some would rather play the role of token, we growing. Black through the essence of our presence. We carry the blood of gods, we carry the mind of peasants. Rich black gardens, future look more like Eden. Multiply seeds like the seed banks in Sweden. Rep my planners on plan according to season. B1 code, switching it up is treason. Black power, family what we eat. Either we get fed or we feed. B1AG.
What's growing on? What's growing on? What is growing on? Welcome back to B1AG. I'm John Henry Harris. We also have Farmer Brown EMC. Here at B1AG, we focus on Black agriculture as it pertains to Black agriculture production, education, marketing, health, food, nutrition, and economics, all for the Black family and for the Black community. Welcome, Black, to the garden. Today's story is going to center around, of course, food, but when it comes in times of hunger, hunger brings about desperation. And desperation is a state of despair, typically one which results in rash or extreme behavior. Now, if we've ever been hungry before, we've known that we might get, act in a certain way, act out, get angry, or you might be willing to, somebody might even be able to exploit that hunger to make you do something that you might not necessarily want to do. Or say if you're talking about a job, if you're hungry, you might work that job for less money than what you know you're due to be paid. Today's story centers around a report from CNN in which actually a child was sold by her parents to a stranger so they can eat. A child sold a stranger so family can eat. Now, this CNN report is centered in Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan economy continues to crumble. A 9-year-old girl, her name is Parwana Malik. They say she was sold to a 55-year-old stranger whom she refers to as an old man. And it says 12 months earlier, her father already sold her 12-year-old sister. And that's just because they were unable to afford basic necessities like food. And as we look into this story, we're going to really check out and deep dive into the fact that food insecurity is really a driver in the sex trade industry. And this happens out of desperation. So this is a kind of a somber story, a discussion, but we know this also drives home our point. This is why we all need to grow our own food to avoid that type of desperation, because desperation can reveal itself in many ways, and we don't want to have anyone feel desperate because they're not able to feed themselves. So Farmer Brown, let's go ahead and deep dive, bro.
First, I just like to say peace to the B1 family. Hope everybody's doing well. Here at B1AG, we like to stick to facts. We don't like to deal in conjecture. It is definitely a mental exercise to keep our emotions out of some of the topics we discuss when it comes to nefarious activity going on around the world, specifically when it comes down to our food system in relation to melanated families. So the story that we're basing this conversation around, it is based in Afghanistan. Like I said, we're not here to disparage any group. Injustice is injustice. Injustice doesn't have a color. But when we think about the melanated community specifically, when we understand that when it comes to food security, we represent the group in what we call North America with the most food insecurity per capita, this definitely hits home. Unfortunately, within a lot of mainstream modern culture, the strip club culture, sex trade culture has been glamorized, in many ways commercialized. But just doing our research for this particular topic, man, is gut wrenching. I don't think there's even a way to say there's a silver lining. More so than what Bruh said, this is one of the reasons why we really stress that we have to look into not only growing our own food, learning how to, but really localizing our food systems and knowing how to get the most productive help to the people that need it the most. But I unfortunately look forward to deep diving into this conversation.
Now, outside of the story of the 9-year-old Afghanistan girl that was sold, um, here in America, there was actually a study done by the Urban Institute, and the Guardian reported that teenagers in America are resorting to sex work because they cannot afford food, according to a study that suggests widespread hunger in the world's wealthiest country. They actually studied 10 communities, 10 large communities in this country. And the Urban Institute, which is a Washington-based think tank, described girls selling their body or sex for money as a strategy to make ends meet. Boys desperate for food were said to go to extremes such as shoplifting and selling drugs. And they also show that evidence of teenage girls turning to transactional dating with older men is also another particular rise for alarm. And this all stems from hunger. And it all stems from hunger. So it's not just Afghanistan. This has been going on in America forever, since the
We
beginning.
we were talking the other day, so we know statistically speaking, and so there's 16 million individuals in what we call North America and what they classify as black, but we'll say the melanated community, 16 million individuals that are food insecure. There's a difference between I don't get enough to eat versus I don't know if I'm going to eat. And so there's 16 million humans, individuals within our community in North America that don't know if they're going to eat. So within that, there's more than 6 million, and I think that's actually a conservative number, more than 6 million teenagers. Well, you classify them as kids. We're a little older. I see them as kids, right? That are food insecure. We're not going to say that everybody that's food insecure is going to resort to sex trade or trapping or stealing, but we got to be honest, family. You can't victimize the victims. This is a victims. This is a crime. This is a crime. We know we live on a planet that we only live on 3% of the land. We're on a planet that grows food. And so when we look at the systems that are responsible for, when we look at the governments, the systems that we pay taxes into that are responsible for feeding people, I think it's kind of disgusting that I even have to put the word responsible for feeding people when you understand before there was a such thing as a government, our ancestors fed themselves. Unfortunately, over time, discrimination, just a lot of the social and cultural and political dynamics, wars, we've fallen into a dependent state as a people. I'm not one that ever wants to acknowledge being in a weak standpoint, but as the elder Nellie Fuller says, we're prisoners of war. We do happen to be in a prison where we still have access to land, where we can mitigate some of this bondage, this psychoeconomic, even natural bondage that we find ourselves in. 6 million melanated children. Okay, let's put this in perspective. So what our taxpayer dollars go to, so the government does have a SNAP program, better known as food stamps, which only provides on average $1.40 meal per day per person. $1.40. Last time you even went to a fast food joint, what did you get for $1.40? Once again, not to victimize the victim, Okay, so I'm a mother. I might have 2 kids, 1 kid, 4 kids, 5 kids. What is $1.40 per individual a day going to do for nutrition? There are also a lot of psychological components to why this dynamic exists. I remember I can't even laugh about it. I laughed about it at the time because I didn't understand the gravity of the situation. I remember back in about 2010, my nephew was in high school. My nephew Trey was in high school, and we used to just chop it up, what's going on. And he's like, man, these girls are giving it up for food cards, to get lunch. And it was kind of a chuckle thing, like I said, it was a general conversation. But as I've gotten deeper into my journey into this food system, that was deep. And so these are otherwise girls that you're more than likely not going to notice because nobody wants to acknowledge, like, hey, I don't have enough to meet my daily needs. Hey, my family doesn't have the money to feed me. My mother, working, father not there, whatever the dynamic, I don't have enough. And so most people aren't going to come out and say, hey, I'm hungry. Can you feed me? And so, tying into this topic today, it manifests itself in other ways. Like I said, trying to keep my emotions out of it, man. I feel like there's this place called hell. There's a special place in the oven of hell for people that would exploit this. Because it's one thing, okay, you just want some nice flashy things. Okay, what are you willing to give me for these nice flashy things? But it's another thing, you have parents that are making these hard decisions. Like you're talking about the family in Afghanistan, like, okay, I have to sell my night. And this is culture, family. It's not just in Afghanistan. A lot of what people classify as third world countries, a lot of the family in Africa, are having to make these decisions. There's all of us in this family unit. It might be 5 of us. Do we go hungry and we see that there's this foreigner that got this money to where we can get some food, and they're showing an interest in my daughter. Sometimes they're showing an interest in my son. Now, what do we do? Do all of us starve or do we sell one? This is a horrible decision that people are having to make, family. Uh, when we talk about solutions, we can address some of this. There's no magic button to where suddenly, okay, overnight, the people and families having to make these decisions will suddenly be fed. That's unrealistic. But are there discussions, action items we can take today in 2021 to address by 2022, 2023, and beyond, as we see the world changing and system changing? Are there things we can do now? Absolutely.
Again, this issue of hunger being a key driving force in the sex trade, it is cultural. Like it's just part. It's what happens in low income communities and in high poverty situations. Susan Popkin, who is a senior fellow at the Urban Institute and lead author of the report Impossible Choices, she says, even for me, and this was a study done in America of 10 high poverty communities in America at the risk of sexual exploitation. She says, even for me, who has been paying attention to this and has heard women tell their stories for a long time, the extent to which we are hearing about food being related to this vulnerability was new and shocking to me. And the level of desperation that it implies is really shocking to me. It's a situation I think is just getting worse over time. That word desperation, desperation. I think it's shocking for a lot of us because we may not have ever felt or been that hungry to feel that much despair towards getting something to eat. Now that's a blessing. That is a blessing that you haven't been that hungry. But there are people on this planet, there are people in your community, there may be some people in your family that do feel that desperate when it comes to their hunger and food insecurity.
Bro,
And this,
I remember I had a history course, man, and it was talking about the Great Depression, the 1930s. And there was this concept, it was dance tickets. But what happened is a lot of the men had to leave the offices. A lot of people lost jobs. And so wives, not girlfriends, not hot girl summer, wives who love their families, The rich men would go to these dance halls and they would get tickets and they would just,
Mm.
have the woman of their choice. This is somebody's mother. This is somebody's wife. They're not out there looking for a good time or an easy ride. This was the Great Depression, right? Uh, Here at B1AG, we like to focus our conversation around our community, right? And a few years earlier than that was actually the highest point where melanated people were farming. 1925, we were like 15% of the farmers. So this didn't affect melanated communities as bad during the Great Depression because many of these melanated communities were actually producing food. So you might not have been able to enjoy the amenities of the booming 20s or whatever, but you were able to produce your own food. So, but when you were in these larger cities, and these are white folks, these are other groups, immigrant groups, they were literally selling their wives to be able to feed themselves, and that was in the 1930s. So we fast forward, we find ourselves in 2021, where that 15% that melanated people represent is down to 1.4%. It might have gone up to 1.5 or 6, but it's less of us producing now, less of us connected to farmers, local food systems producing, and we see a depression type of dynamic taking place where we see the system is shutting down. We see a lot of mandates being put in place where people are having to make decisions as far as their employment. We know in the melanated community, our employment is typically higher than every other group. When we talk about food insecurity, we know the food insecurity in our community is higher than every other group. And so when we look at this storm of events happening, they say that history repeats itself. Once again, to frame this conversation, how are we positioning ourselves for the sake of our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, our nieces? How are we positioning ourselves going into the future as we see the markets are changing, as we see the way that humans do business with one another is changing? It's not maybe, it's not if something goes wrong. No, we're in the midst of it. And so once again, when we talk about action items, this is why we stress learning how to grow your own food. You might not, more than likely, you're not going to just become a farmer because you start your garden. But if you at least know how to start your food, you at least know what to expect. That is a skill set. Brother Lawrence Watkins was talking about when it comes to building a family. One of the things, obviously, there's the financial piece of it, but then it's building skills that have value in any sort of economic, social, political climate. Being able to grow food, being able to know how to grow food, being able to know other people that are growing food, to be able to have these conversations. How do we make it a culture where people don't feel embarrassed about, hey, I couldn't afford to go to a grocery store, but my parents, my aunties, my uncles, my neighbors, we have this co-op, we have this food co-op where all of us are growing, different fruits and vegetables, maybe raising some chickens as supplemental food. We're going into those times, family. This isn't a chicken little falling out of the sky moment. This relative comfort that we enjoy now, this has been a very small amount of time. The majority of human existence on this planet, people didn't have amenities like refrigerators, uh, freezers, fast food joints. This is a relatively small amount of time. So the majority of the time that human beings have been in this orb that we call Earth, we had to produce food, or we had to have localized food systems where we were able to eat. And so saying that to say, when we see the sex trade is at an all-time high, you were talking before we started about Epstein and some of the meetings with people that we know that are inserting themselves in the food system. As above, so below. If I feed you and you have no other option, then you got to do whatever I tell you. It sickens me that when we think, absolutely, Hunger Games, this ain't a game. This ain't a game. It sickens me the thought of a 9-year-old girl saying, yeah, this old man, because you can only evoke the thought, the curdling of your stomach, realizing I love my family. I know dad loves me, but I want dad, mom, and my sisters and brothers to eat. And so I'll take it for the team. And maybe that's a horrible analogy, but these are real decisions that people are making now. And if we don't take charge of our food security, more individuals within our communities are going to have to make these hard decisions. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, a lot of times we talk about the artists, the popular people that do some of these things, the so-called casting couch to be popular, to get to a bag. We're not talking about that. We're talking about real world, regular people that we know, that we see. We walk past them every day. Some of them are in our households. Some of them are in our families. Maybe they don't want to come say, "Hey, mom, I made a bad decision. Hey, mom, I didn't do everything I was supposed to do." That's horrible trauma for a person to deal with. And when you realize there was a time, relatively, in less than 100 years, that more of us were able to feed ourselves. So this is not an abstract concept of us really, codifying around how do we make sure we don't become desperate, independent.
That's why, self-sufficiency is pushed. You know, being self-sufficient, being able to do for self. It goes beyond money. We need to be able to build for ourselves. We need to be able to grow for ourselves. We need to be able to make sure that uh I was watching 50 Cent's BMF show, and it was talking about, if you cut off somebody's lights, they can just light a candle. If you cut off somebody's heat, they can always just grab a blanket. But when you cut off somebody's water, that's when you got them. Cause that's when they can't bathe, they can't flush the toilet, they can't, when you cut off somebody's water, which is equivalent to somebody's food, you can put them in a desperate state where they can be exploited. So let's make sure that we keep ourselves, our families, and our communities in a place where they can't cut off our water. They can't cut off our food. The great Frederick Douglass, he told us food is a weapon of war. We keep bringing it up because they're showing you more and more examples of how food can be used as a weapon when it's withheld from someone, or when it's poisoned, when the food isn't good. It's about exploitation.
So you think about this 9-year-old. So she survives this 55-year-old, and she grows into an adult. What kind of life is she gonna have? And apply this to all of the young melanated sisters and young men who have to deal with these situations. What kind of adult life are they going to have? Are they going to sleep peaceable? To be able to eat for a month, however long. I'm going to have this lifetime. What do they say? You exchange energies when you have intercourse, right? You exchange energies. They call them spiritually transmitted diseases. You exchange that, so I'm giving you a piece of my soul for something to eat temporarily. Multiply this times millions of kids. We think we have a problem now in our communities. And a lot of, like you were saying, these studies showed a lot of the crime when it comes down to ability to learn in schools. If you're not eating or you have these sugar or highly processed diets, I'm not going to be able to just sit and listen to a teacher all day. It's because my mind's going to be like, now, when am I going to get my next meal? We see what's happening with these schools right now. There's some programs, we even have them here in Kentucky, where they want families like, hey, we need you to send lunch with your kid because we don't have it. And so the writing is on the wall about how unstable our food system is, that many of us have just, we've normalized. We assume that it's always just going to be there. We assume I can always just spend my dollar or, swipe this card or send my kid here and there's going to be a meal waiting for them. Like I said, we can't control what the corporate people do. We can control with our dollars, but we can control at least accessibility. We know that we can grow food in pretty much anything that holds soil. There's even aquaculture, right? We know food needs sunlight, at least 12 hours of sunlight a day. We know food needs water. The earth is 75% water. Obviously, you can't use salt water. But I'm saying that to say the resources exist for us to not only mitigate this problem, but to create a system to where, okay, we're going to have political issues in a world of all these different people, but we can at least alleviate our dependency when it comes to our food by making this a part of our normal culture. It shouldn't be weird and abstract for a kid to go, hey, mother, whoever sends you up the street to the neighbor's house, hey, go get some carrots from Sister Jackson. Take this bag of tomatoes up there for her. Get some of them carrots. That should become normal, just as normal as, hey, can I use your phone charger? Because you can't eat that phone. You can't eat the entertainment. Not to digress, there's this talk about meta, this metaverse. It makes me think of iRobot, or what is it, Surrogate, with Bruce Willis, where life was so bad it became so dystopian that people just put these glasses on. Let me live vicariously through something else. You're still going to have to eat, family. Some of these issues we're not going to be able to run around. We're not going to be able to, duck our head in the sand and just expect it to fix itself. When we think about the movies like Soylent Green, when we think about the food squares that, these are new startups, there are some serious, heavy discussions going on right now about how the powers that be plan on feeding people. And, coming from a scientific professional standpoint, I don't think the majority of the melanated family would be too pleased if they understood what's really going on, some of these conversations. But the optimist in me says there is something we can do about it today. Right now, if you're watching this right now, as soon as I close my computer, I have a choice to go outside and do something. What does the elder Neely Fuller say? Every move you make should be the most productive move that's ever been made in the world towards a code of bringing justice. A part of this justice is feeding not only ourselves, our families, but those around us. Because if I'm sitting over here like a fat cat and everything around me is starving, there's more meat, there's more protein for everything around me starving, literally and metaphorically speaking, to eat. And so to the degree I can, as we still do have choice, we still do have body parts to work, we still do have these natural resources relatively accessible to us. To the degree that we learn again, not that we have to learn something new, this is already in us. But every generation that we don't make this or reinsert this as a part of our culture, we become weaker. We're becoming dollar rich and naturally poor. That's a horrible dynamic. So what happens when, okay, you're not going to get dollars unless you then don't have an option to be like, no, Ice Cube, shout out to the brother. He turned down $9 million because he didn't want to make a decision, but he could afford that. How many of us can afford to just, no, I ain't going to eat that you grew in this laboratory? No, some hard decisions being made, family, and the walls is closing in. It's not the end of the world. To me, I think this is the beginning of what could be a great opportunity for the melanated family to reassert ourselves, to live our best lives. But that's not just going to come pie out of the sky. It's going to take effort. It's going to take investment, financial investment, sweat equity. It's going to take cultural buy-in. As a culture, a handful of people is great. You reach a critical mass, but this has to become just as normal to us as, the sex culture that's been promoted to us, the heavy drug use culture, the materialism culture. We have to make our food system just as popping, just as popular as every other culture we embrace and invest in.
For those watching live on Facebook at the Black Boss channel, and for those watching live at B1AG Daily Bread podcast on YouTube, I put in the chat, in the live chat, the petition to sign to release payments for our Black farmers debt relief. That link is there. I also put the link to the most comprehensive list that we could find about where our Black farmers and Black food providers are at Shop Black. That link is in the live chat. Find a black farmer, black food producer near you. Make a friend. Spend some dollars. I also put in the chat the link to our merchandise store. Go ahead and check out our B1AG swag. Let's keep pushing this black algorithm. And let's make this conversation grow. Let's make this platform grow. And let's make sure that every one of us in this community is aware of what is going on with our food, what is growing on with our food system, what is going into our food, and how to maintain and ensure that we are food secure. Shout out to Maj Toure with security. We are just like we take security seriously. When it comes with our right to bear arms, we have a natural right to grow food. And we need to be just as vigilant when it comes to feeding ourselves and growing our food as well. That is security. Food, clothing, shelter. That's security in this world. And it has always been security in this world. So, this wasn't this is a topic we had to discuss, food and food insecurity manifests itself in many ways. But one thing for sure, when you're food insecure, desperation is sure to follow. And desperation can cause people to make some extreme decisions. So let's make sure that we are on the right side of math when it comes to probability and extremes, so we don't have to make some of these extreme decisions. Let's help others who are facing these extreme decisions to where they don't have to make those extreme decisions, make these, life-changing decisions, life-altering decisions just to eat. Especially if we have food to share, food to spare. And we surely, if you look at America in particular, we also have a lot of food to waste. A lot of food goes to waste.
40% of all food in North America produced goes to waste. 40%.
That's almost half, y'all.
I grew 10 apples, 4 of them go to waste. They never get eaten. And we have 6 million kids, 16 million people within the melanated community that go hungry. And 40% of the food we grow goes to waste. So are we localizing the systems? Are we building those communal economic baskets? And me, I don't see myself as a bottom feeder, right? And so there's one thing, scavenging, we don't need to scavenge. We can produce. We have all we need. And in my modest opinion, as far as waiting on the government, we have all that we're going to get, family. Are we making best use of it? Are we having those discussions?
Child sold to strangers so family can eat. We all got to eat, y'all. And we all deserve an equitable seat at the proverbial dinner table. Comments, questions, concerns, ideas, connections, information, hit us up at B1AgHipHop@gmail.com. B1AgHipHop@gmail.com. If you'd like to donate to the channel, to the platform, you can hit us up on Cash App, B1AG Hip Hop, $ B1AG Hip Hop, to donate to the platform. At the end of the day, family, if you really want to know something, if you really, really want to know something, what do they need to do, Farmer Brown?
The family really want to know something. Let's build black better and learn how to grow something.
There it is. Family, B1AG family. Let's continue through this week. We're almost to the weekend. Let's continue to grow. Let's continue to love. Tell somebody you love them. If you see someone who's hungry, feed them. Feed them.
I want to address what the brother said, Nathaniel Lockridge. He said he's been trying to get people of color, melanated people around him to start growing, and they get shut down. Noah looked like a crazy man until it started raining. One of the reasons we have this B1AG conversation, we're well aware, okay, we could talk about some ratchet things and get more views and likes, but, you know, the people that need to hear it are going to hear it. This is when it comes to, okay, you understand that this is a dynamic. Some of our people are so asleep that they don't realize this boiling pot that we've all found ourselves in. So, you know, it's a labor of love. Since you understand the importance, since I understand the importance, the melanated family that understands what's going on, understand the importance, you got to do the heavy lifting. You got to do the heavy lifting. Get it started, right? Start building the ark. Building this ark meaning, okay, since I can't get help, let me go on and see what resources I can get. Maybe it just starts in my backyard, my little backyard research farm, my research garden. Maybe it starts on my balcony. I believe in the law of thirds. If you talk to 10 people, at least a third are going to buy into what you're talking about when you have actionable items. The actionable items we're talking about here is just start some seeds. We're going into the winter. And so now is the time, and this is even being practical, to start planning spring 2022. As early as December, as early as January, you can actually start your seeds indoors, depending on the space you have, making sure they're getting sunlight. Because you know, if you're watching B1AG, then you know all of these things are coming. We're not making this up. We're just, you know, the information is coming down. We're just disseminating it in a language that the family understands. And so that is the burden of love, that since you understand this is going on, bro, you know, you have to take the first step.
And for everyone else watching, just understand that, you know, get started. And just know that many hands make light work. Many hands make light work.
Your garden is a billboard, family. When people walk by, you see your family, you know, initially, oh, what are them weird people over there doing? Oh, they're over there growing garden. I'm going to take my car and go get something fast food. We know how these things can happen. So what happens is I've just gone to this fast food joint. My car didn't work. Whatever security I thought I had in there, then what Mr. Lockridge had going on, that's when that seed starts to resonate. And Mr. Lockridge has to just, you know, it's, I wish you would pick up on what we're doing now, but okay, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep showing you what my family's doing. And that's the billboard, because mainstream media isn't going to show pictures of you taking it upon yourself to learn how to feed yourself. You know, mainstream is always going to promote us as being dependent, needy, not able to do something for ourselves. And so it's with us individuals who care, who understand what's going on. We're the billboards. We're the marketers for what we see coming over the horizon. And I guarantee you, bro, people are watching. People are watching. People are taking heed. And unfortunately, what they say, pride goeth before the fall. Many people are going to be too proud to say, Brother Nathaniel, I've been watching what you had going on. I just didn't know how serious it was. But by you continuously doing it, those that are watching are learning.
And
hey, bro, keep doing what you're doing. It is not going unnoticed. Obviously, you're able to do this for your family, but other people are benefiting and seeds are being planted.
And here at B1AG, we are going to keep continuing to push the Black algorithm. We are going to continue to push the Black algorithm.
Pushing the Black algorithm. Ancestors, they mastered the systems. Replacing your bosses, no victims. Cutting that knowledge curriculum.
That's in the boots with the nutrients. The darker the berry like Nubian. Dropping receipts like I'm Julian. The streets with that fruit like Peruvian. Trapping and merging the fruits and the veggies. CSA boxes, my package is heavy. Ship across down in the bed of my Chevy. Printing them up, growing harder than heavy. If you stay ready, you ain't gotta scramble. Battle like farmers and growers, no gamble. We claiming our fingers, the gamers and shambles. That's what that melanin carry the miracle. Mothers and fathers of civilization. Like to the garden with true cultivation. Building back better through like innovation. B1 community growing the nation. Genetically designed to be the dopest, loving that growth mindset. Codified, now we focus, farming on track. Be the fan, break bread with them. Pushing that B1AG algorithm. Now why you get them? Watch me get them. Pushing that B1AG algorithm. Be the fan, break bread with them. Pushing that B1AG algorithm. Watch me get them. That pushing that B1AG algorithm.
B1AG. I'm John Henry Harris. We have Farmer Brown EMC. See you soon. Peace.